Hello and welcome tonight. Thank you so much for coming. We know it's March Madness, and so that it's really dedication to be here. Thank you. I'm Ann Sykon. I'm the Executive Director here at Center for Independent Futures.
I'm Tricia Luzader. I manage No Boundaries and JJ's List at their.
Search.
What are they, JJ? I'm with Search, which is the big provider.
Tricia.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Tricia. We just are so thrilled you're all here tonight. You know, for over 20 years, JJ Hanley has been this blazing a trail across Illinois as a powerful advocate for our community. First as a mom, then an award-winning documentary producer, being the founder of JJ's List, serving as the Associate Director at Search, Inc. And tonight, she comes to us at Center for Independent Futures from the State Treasurer's Department as Director of Illinois ABLE. Thank you, JJ.
As Ann said, this has been both my personal and my professional passion of shifting paradigms for people who have disabilities into participating in the community, getting jobs, being part of the community. And when this opportunity came to me to direct the Illinois ABLE program for the State Treasurer's Office, I felt honestly, and I still feel, this is the most transformative and important program that has come the way of the disability community since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I am absolutely passionate about ABLE, also very aware of all of the work that we have to do going forward to make it successful. And we can talk a little bit about that and how it compares to how the 529 college savings industry was when it first started. But I do think this is truly transformative for individuals who have disabilities and their families. So this is discussion based. If we can, I'll parking lot things if we need to, just to keep things flowing. I want to make sure that when you walk out of here, whether you're a self-advocate or you're a family member or you're a current account owner, you have information that maybe you didn't have before, that myths or rumors that you'd heard about ABLE are either confirmed or dispelled, and that if you are interested in opening an ABLE account, you know exactly what to do when you leave. It should be easy, it should be doable, and I know that there are some professionals in here who may actually have some insights. Marianne is here from Protected Tomorrows, and there may be some others. I mean, if you're an attorney, if you're in the special needs trust industry, you know, don't hesitate to talk about this, because what we know is ABLE is really new. And as such, there are lots of questions that you may have that I might not be able to answer some of them. But as I have done at all presentations, I promise I will get the answer for you and send it to you. So let's go. Okay, thank you. I say that there are 6 questions. There are a lot more, but there are 6 basic fundamentals we want to know. 1, ABLE, it stands for a better life experience. It is the result of an act that was passed by Congress in 2014 after many years of advocacy and fighting by families who felt that their children who have disabilities were, once they became adults, were trapped in a chronic state of poverty unless they could or had the means to and the capacity to shift everything into a special needs trust, which is often, and in many cases, a very good tool. But it was the only way until ABLE that families could save and invest, and individuals who have disabilities could save and invest to help them take care of the expenses that come with having a disability. So in a nutshell, ABLE accounts are tax-advantaged savings accounts or savings and investment accounts that let people with disabilities put money in and then use that money to take care of disability-related expenses. Please feel free to come on in. I moved chairs around, but you're welcome to grab them. And the nice thing about an ABLE account is that when you have one, you do not threaten or lose your federal means-tested benefits. What are some of the federal means-tested benefits programs that we can think of? Subsidized housing, HUD benefits, housing vouchers. Other ones? So SSI and SSDI. Other ones? Medicaid, SNAP, what used to be called food stamps. Those are a lot of the federal means tested benefits, and particularly if an individual receives SSI, historically there has been a maximum amount of money that you could have and not lose your benefits. What is that max? $2,000. Everybody seems to know that $2,000 magic number, and families and individuals spend a lot of time chasing around trying to avoid hitting that max. Spending money that they don't need to spend because grandma wrote a check and it was written into the name of the individual. And so what are you going to do with it? You can't let your assets go above $2,000. You don't have a special needs trust, or it wasn't written to the trust, so therefore, you get stuck. Make sense? And so when you have an ABLE account, that $2,000 max for SSI recipients is no longer relevant. It's relevant when you hit $100,000. And that's a big difference. That's the difference between living a life of chronic poverty and kind of feeling trapped to living a life where your quality of life can truly be very different. So the kinds of money that can go into an ABLE account, and I tell self-advocates this a lot, individuals with disabilities, because when we talk together about ABLE, for a lot of self-advocates, this idea of having money and doing something with my money, for all of us actually, can be very, very new. And a lot of times we as families, when we hear about this, the first thing we think is this a social service program, right? This is part of the Medicaid world, right? It is not. This is from the Treasury Department. It's part of the IRS world. It's part of the investment and savings world. It's part of the 401k, the 529 college savings, the health savings account world. It's a whole different part of the world that the disability community has not accessed before. So when we talk about it, a lot of times Terry and I were just talking about who here has heard about the Medicaid clawback? Don't open an ABLE account because of the Medicaid clawback. We all think about, okay, how's it going to mess with my benefits? Rightly so, because we spend so darn much time running around protecting those benefits. This allows us to breathe, and it allows us to take responsibility and have some independence and some control over our disability-related expenses. So the money that goes into an ABLE account can come from any private source. So what are some of the ways that we can put into an ABLE account?
Parents investing some money into
Yeah.
a child account.
Yeah, your parents or family member could put money into it. Other ways, other sources of contributions to an ABLE account, family, friends? Job earnings. Job earnings is a big piece of it. I'm earning money. I can put the money into that account. We'll go a little bit further into that in a minute. And ABLE accounts can be used for disability-related expenses. We'll go into that in a little bit, because that's an area where people are like, well, what does that mean? What does it mean, the disability-related expense? We operate from a position of fear in our community, and this is a chance to operate from a position of strength and control. So we'll talk a little about that. Things like, what are some of the things that, if you're willing to share, feel free. If I'm asking questions you're not comfortable sharing, you don't have to, obviously. But what are some of the kinds of disability expenses that people might incur that aren't taken care of by federal programs? We'll get it. We'll talk about that. What about going to a movie? When we go to the expenses themselves, let's kind of go into that. What are some expenses that come with having a disability? Medical equipment.
iPads, especially for those in the autism world and some of the other.
Yeah, maybe an iPad purchase if I really use that as a communication device. Transportation. I know that when my son was young, if I'd had access to an ABLE account, we would have put the money into an ABLE account and allowed that to accumulate while we were paying for the multivitamin therapies we were trying. I would have even used it for some of the gluten-free flour I was buying to try to help with his autism spectrum disorder, all of the different things that we might have as expenses. And you don't pay, or the account owner doesn't pay taxes on the withdrawals from an ABLE account. So it's not apples to apples retirement, but when we have a retirement account, You don't touch it till you retire, because if you do, you pay taxes and you pay a penalty on the withdrawal. You don't pay taxes or penalties on the withdrawals from an ABLE account no matter when you take the money out. Many people use them transactionally. The only time you would pay taxes and or penalties if you use the money for something that's not a disability-related expense. We're going to go into that. You do not lose your federal means, you don't lose qualification for your federal means tested benefits. With SSI and employment, I want to clarify some things, some myths that people have about that in a minute. Do I qualify for an ABLE account is question number 2. What are the qualifications for an ABLE account? Shout it out, anybody know? What do you have to, what do I have to do or be to qualify? You have to be disabled. You have to have a disability. You have to have a disability that meets the definition of disability according to the Social Security Administration. In short, it means that you qualify or would qualify for federal means tested benefits, SSI or SSDI, that level of disability. Yes?
I do have a question about that, because part of the thing you can do is self-certify, so what would stop anybody from just self-certifying if they're disabled?
Right, good question. Let me answer the other half of this, and then we'll go back to that. And what would stop somebody from self-certifying that they have a disability? This is a self-certifying program. When you enroll in ABLE, the program managers, Illinois ABLE, Missouri ABLE, we don't want to see that diagnosis. We don't want to see the proof that the disability is present. So unlike social service programs where you got to document every darn thing, it's the opposite. We don't want to see the documentation. It'll get destroyed. The reason for that is because of HIPAA. The reason that it is self-certifying is that states and program managers are not in a position, in order for these programs to operate, to monitor that. And so it is the responsibility of the individual account owner to tell the truth and to be on the up and up. Does it open the program up to fraud and abuse? Absolutely. But, you know, we as members of the disability community, and I'll go into that on enrollment, and something that I feel very strongly about around enrollment in a minute, because I think that we have to protect this program. We have to protect it from fraud and abuse, which I don't think is going to be a big problem initially, because the first out of the gates are the ones that are paying attention and want this and are ready for it and they're knowledgeable. It's down the road, and we can talk a little bit about that.
Does the person have to be on SSI or SSDI?
Great. You do not have to, you have to qualify. You do not have to be receiving. I know plenty of folks who would qualify for SSI, SSDI, and they have never gotten it. All you have to have in that case is a certification or a certificate from a physician that says this individual has a qualifying disability that meets the definition of the Social Security Administration. And what's the other piece that you have to, that it has to say? Oops. Yes. And do you have to have been diagnosed before age 26? This is full of quizzes. This is my quiz night. No. So that's another part where people get confused. The symptoms of your disability have to have been present prior to 26. So for a lot of folks who acquire their disabilities from birth, or your autism spectrum disorder was diagnosed when you were 3, that's, you have that. But let's say somebody develops a mental illness and the symptoms were present in their teens, but they didn't get a diagnosis until after 26. That individual still qualifies for the program. Again, as long as you meet that age requirement, if you are receiving SSI benefits or SSDI and you meet the age, you automatically qualify. You don't have to get any certification, because you've already gotten certified when you went through that process.
So the age of onset?
Age of onset is what? Before age 26. So your age of onset had to start, you had to get this disability before 26, but you don't have to have been diagnosed before then. Some people think you have to enroll before you're 26. No. We have individuals enroll who were in their 50s. And so it's that the age of 26 thing is when the advocates were pushing for this, there was never an age attached to this program, and we're being recorded, so I won't use the word that starts with a D that I think that this age limit does against people who acquired their disability at age 28 or 30 or 40. But it's arbitrary. And it came because the Congressional Budget Office gave a sense of a score to our champions. And our champions on the Hill were trying to get this thing passed. And they gave a price tag to the champions. And the champions said, there is no way this is going to pass with this price tag. The price tag was like $20 billion, which is absolutely wrong. So they said, well, what age can you get it down to and get it to a lower price tag? And the age was set at 26, which I think was halfway between 46 and I don't even remember what it was, but it was kind of set arbitrarily. And, it got a lower price tag. And the promise was made that once this act was passed and this got underway, our champions would go back to bat for us and work with us to get the age increased. So that's one of the things that we're working on now. But that's the reason for the age of onset is that random. God forbid you have an accident at 28 and you lose a couple of limbs, you don't qualify. Glad to say Tammy Duckworth, we've met with her and she is on board to help lead the way for this next round, because this age of onset legislation, the bills have been there. They're on the Hill now. They've been there for 4 years. It's just, we got to get it passed. So, any other questions about age of onset? Do I qualify for ABLE? Yes, I'm sorry.
Is there a waiting list? My mom was wondering if there's a waiting list. When you get accepted, how long do you have to wait?
Great question. Anton, how long do you have to wait before you can open an ABLE account? You could open an ABLE account tomorrow. Now, you're going to have to wait while it gets processed, because depending upon who makes decisions. If you make decisions for yourself, you have a guardian. And so if you have a guardian, your guardian will have to submit some papers to say, yeah, I'm really Anton's guardian. And then the check goes through. And so it can take 10 days or so to get that paperwork through.
That was my question. My son has SSI.
Yep.
But I haven't done the guardianship yet.
Yep.
Do I wait until I get the guardianship before I open the ABLE account?
How old is he?
So he's 19, but he wants a credit card really badly.
Ooh.
So he wants to go online, he wants to spend, he wants to.
We're not supposed to give advice, so I'm going to take off the state treasurer's hat and put on my parent hat. If he's 19, he's an adult. If you are interested in opening an ABLE account for him and you are going to be pursuing guardianship, there are 2 avenues you can take. One is he can grant you power of attorney to be the authorized individual on his account, or when you get guardianship, and I want to talk about this with this group before the end of the night. Right now, in order to open an Illinois ABLE account, you have to show that you have guardianship of the estate. And I'm sure Mary Ann's like, it has been the bane of my existence, the guardianship issue in Illinois, and we'll go into that in a minute.
And can you open it now with power of attorney? And
Absolutely.
Then when you get guardianship, switch it to that?
Actually, I think if he opens it now and gives you, grants you power of attorney, that's all you'll need.
Because he signs everything for me. Okay.
Yeah, that's all you'll need.
So there's no problem if they open it and then later become the guardian?
If there is a problem, the only problem is that if he grants you power of attorney, actually once you become guardian, the power of attorney becomes null and void, correct? So then you would have to go and send in your guardianship papers. But we'll go into a little bit of some of the rules that we're working to change on this. I do have to do full disclosure. I'm not an attorney, so some of the questions I'll answer them with a qualifier so that you know that I'm not 100% sure of the answer. Mary Ann, did you have a thought?
If she becomes guardian but only of the person.
Well, that's what we're going to get into in a second. Yes, we'll talk about that because That's where the Bain part is. Yes.
Like, I have power of attorney, but I don't have guardianship, and I guess I never thought
If you have power of attorney granted to you, and it's
it's all legal.
if you've got a power of attorney, that's the only thing you need to submit in order to become the authorized individual. What happens, what I think Mary Ann's referring to is power of attorney is legit until a guardianship is acquired, and then that individual loses his ability to go into contract, and so the POA becomes irrelevant. It's not valid anymore. Okay, so, yes?
So what if your child is a minor? Can you do this, is there a minimum age? Can you do this at any point as long as they're disabled?
Say again?
As long as they're disabled, can you do this at any point? Is there?
Can you do this at any age as long as there's a disability? Yes. You can open an ABLE account at any age. In fact, as a parent of a minor, you can open an account without submitting any documentation. So, the process is still a little bit less than perfectly streamlined. Okay, when is ABLE right for me? We talked about it. I receive SSI or SSDI. You don't have to worry about that $2,000 asset cap. However, if you have a checking account with $1,900 in it, and you have an ABLE account, and you go put $500 into that checking account with the $1,900 in it, Social Security is going to suspend your benefits. So you're going to want to funnel any of those additional funds into your ABLE account. That's one of the things that ABLE serves to do. Does that make sense? Now, Mary Ann and others, there may be a reason to have, a different checking or investment account for some reason. I'm not sure what those are. Once you've got your ABLE account, I guess it depends on what ABLE account you choose and what are the features of it that you want to use. Because some ABLE accounts don't have a checking option. Some have a sort of a controlled debit option. The Illinois ABLE plan has a checking option and a debit card, so it's got some flexibility with a few caveats. You qualify for SSI or SSDI, but you're not receiving it. Then you just have to have a certification by a physician that says before 26 this was acquired and this person qualifies under the SSA. ABLE is great when you're working and earning a paycheck. I am not a special needs trust professional. I know Brian Rubin. I know the folks in the world, and we work together to talk about ABLE. What I know of the relationship is ABLE is considered a great add-on tool for a special needs trust. And there are a lot of situations in which an attorney would advise you to fill your ABLE account first and use your ABLE account for X, Y, and Z, and then use the trust for this. I'm not qualified to say what those are, but some people think if I have a special needs trust, I don't need an ABLE account or I don't want one, and that's not true. The two are complementary. They're not replacements for each other. I think I mentioned earlier, a lot of families, this was fought for families who don't have the means to have special needs trusts. And, that would be the majority of families. In the country, not just in Illinois, but a lot of folks don't have that kind of setup. And so ABLE makes it possible for them to have that flexibility and some control over their lives without losing access to those federal means-tested benefits.
Because I can tell you as someone who has a trust, there's a lot of complexities that involve with it. Like if the trust earns income, there's taxes
Yes.
on it. And then you have to have a reliable relative to be the trustee. And then what if the relative passes away or something happens to the relative that's the trustee? And then obviously once the person is no longer a minor, that you have the same rules about 18 years old and whether or not a guardian. So there's a lot more complexities in the trust, and I just wanted to share that as someone who has a trust.
Bill, you nailed it. That is very true. The complexities of a special needs trust that are there, the fact that I'm an adult, but I have to ask permission to get money, it does take away some of the control, and that's where I know in some cases special needs trusts will automatically put a certain amount of money in every month. They'll pull some over from the trust into the account so that you've got it protected, the big assets, but you've got some spending. Also, ABLE accounts they're cash accounts. You can't put like real estate in them. I think with special needs trust, you can own a lot of different kinds of investments. You can't do that with an ABLE account. It's a cash account.
I bet you if my mom was there, she would ask the same question.
Sure.
part of this, what you're explaining? Because mom's wondering if I make amount of money, if I make too much or if I make less,
Yep.
how would that come into play?
Yep. If I'm earning money, what does that do to my ability to have an ABLE account? It helps. In fact, if you are working, you probably should have an ABLE account.
Part-time or full-time, either one, right?
Part-time or full-time. And here's the reason why. That, I'll remind you of this too, because I know what your mom is talking about. You know, when Social Security looks at your picture, they look at your income and they look at your assets. ABLE serves the asset side of it. ABLE doesn't serve the income side of it. So Anton, if you earn, the more you earn at Hune, the less that you'll receive in your SSI benefits. That's okay, because you're helping to take care of yourself. You're going to work every day, and sometimes Ellen and Julie want you to work more hours. They need you to work more hours. When you work more hours, your SSI benefit might go down for that month because you're making up for what Social Security takes, right? And so your earnings, no matter what, Social Security is going to adjust for that. Some people think that, oh, if I have an ABLE account and I'm earning money and I'm earning more money, if I put that money into the ABLE account, Social Security won't look at that income. They won't see it, but they do. They still will measure your income piece, how much they're going to give you a month, what your benefits are going to be. What they won't do is look to see if you've got the $2,000. Of course, if you have that checking account that's not an ABLE account, you got $3,000 in it, you've got a problem. But if you have an ABLE account, up to how much and you're getting SSI, how much can you have in your ABLE account before your benefits are suspended? $100,000. So what it means, Anton, is that you can work more and you can save more. And in the end, you have more wealth. You have more money to help take care of yourself. Make sense? Okay, what can I do with an ABLE account? This is where we get into, okay, so what about the movie? Want to go to a movie? What? Full qualification here, ABLE is brand new. The first program out of the gate was Ohio's stable program, and it's not even 2 years old. Illinois and many of the states in the Alliance started about a year ago, a little more than a year ago. So we don't know. In the end, what an audit might produce if an audit takes place. Remember, we said this isn't not a Medicaid program. This is a savings program. This falls on that side of the financial wellness picture. So the folks in DC who care about this are the Treasury and the IRS. The Treasury has given very, and I've got to find the language and put it in here, but in its writings has basically said, when you have a disability that qualifies you for SSI, all of your expenses are disability expenses. We are not worrying about, you know, the little bit here and the little bit there. When we talked a little bit earlier about fraud, the potential for fraud and abuse, that potential is there by somebody who gets an account and, you know, is going to, you know, make up something and start to use the money for anything but disability related expenses. And hopefully they'll get an audit, they'll get triggered. But there are very few things I can think of if I am an individual with a qualifying disability that I should not be able to spend my money on. Now, a bag of potato chips at the Walgreens, when I go to pick up my, you know, bottles of medication and I pay for the medication, if it's all paid for off of the debit card, is the Treasury really going to care about that? I don't think so. I mean, you don't want to make a habit of it. You have to be very careful about making sure that these expenses that you have are related to your disability. But I would, you know, I would say that if I'm an individual with autism spectrum disorder, and I always say autism ASD because that's the one that I know the best, but if I'm going out to a movie with a friend and I want to pay for the movie and have some popcorn, part of the ABLE account's role is to help end the isolation that an individual with a disability experiences. It's to help move us into the community in little ways as well as big ways. And so to go to a movie with a friend, when I have a disability that would qualify me for SSI, I would ask the Treasury to come a calling. Come talk to me if you got a problem with that. Now, if I am saving my money in an ABLE account and I'm using that money to send it to, a boyfriend in Nigeria, and believe you me, we've worked with folks who, are really socially, really wanting that connection. That is an individual who may be at risk, but that use of the money would be totally auditable. Or if, I as a parent put all this money into my child's account, and then I and my husband took a weekend in Napa and used the money for that. If we went to Napa and we took our child and the child had somebody with him to help take care of some things, paying for that person and him, sure, but not for me and my husband, even though we are exhausted and we need respite and blah, blah, blah. It's really very common sense. It's really just thinking about, what's right. How related to the disability is this?
I know you say it's common sense, but a lot of what I spend on my son are rewards, because so if it was a game, a toy, his spending is reward based, and so I'd want to use the account so he could use the money. Can he do that or no?
Okay, I'm putting on my parent hat, and again, nobody has been audited yet. So we don't know we don't have anything to test it on. But as a parent, what you just described, I don't know, let's take a poll. Who would say that's disability related?
Okay, I just want
I would, don't we think? And that's the beauty of ABLE, and some of the, a little bit of the uncertainty of ABLE is that we get to decide. We're the ones that are going to say, this is what disability is. And it means that my son gets rewards that are related to him doing a good job, doing the right thing, being engaged in a way that's appropriate. Yep.
So if you make a mistake and spend the money on something that turns out not to be disability related, does that mean that you get taxed on that money, or does that mean they close down your ABLE?
It means you will get taxed on the money and you'll pay a 10% penalty. You'll get taxed on the earnings and you'll pay a 10% penalty, which I think is on the balance of on the balance in the account. I'm not sure what the 10%, whether it's 10% of what you withdrew. It may be the 10% of what you withdrew. Do you know, Marianne? Of earnings? 10% of earnings? Okay.
So we don't know yet what would trigger.
No, but again, and understandably, I am not minimizing our fear. I'm not minimizing our fear, but I invite us to think without so much fear, to remember that when we are living with and supporting an individual who has a disability that qualifies for SSI, we have, if I'm the individual, I need some supports that a neurotypical person or a person without a disability probably doesn't need. And those supports can sometimes be very evident, and sometimes they're rewards because it helps me modulate or it helps me get there. So I guess it says we have to be brave, and we get to set the tone here. Now, in our program, we're not monitoring, we don't know how people are spending the money. I'd like to know, and not because I want to spy on them, but because I want to know what good is this doing? So we're going to be sending out surveys and trying to figure that out, but we're not tracking. Like with 529 college savings, here's a list of things you can spend it on. It's pretty easy to track how it gets spent and when it gets spent. But with this, it's transactional. You can spend the money whenever you want to. You can use it for a long list of expenses. Oh, it fell off the thing, but let me just read the bottom. Legal fees, expenses for oversight and monitoring, and funeral and burial expenses.
Oh, that does.
Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I heard you speak with the banker when you were at Access Chicago downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting to hear the financial component of the bank. And so that made me think differently about the ABLE account. And I just wonder if you're going to talk about that today, and that, because I remember there being like quite a bit of charges on it, like maybe every time
Yep.
you use a debit card or something.
Yep.
So, I mean,
There are no charges for the yes, we'll talk about the fees.
yeah.
And one thing that I will say about the fees that are associated with the ABLE accounts is early days, higher fees. As it grows, our work is to get the fees lowered. Still, comparatively, compared to the 529 college savings plans, especially in their infancy, these fees are very low. And compared to the cost of having a special needs trust, there isn't even a comparison. But so we'll talk about what the actual numbers are in a second.
So people don't start thinking, oh, they can start using this, all the time.
Well, you can use it all the time. There are no fees as long as you receive. We'll go into it. Okay.
Two things. Obviously, one thing I've seen is frequency, because there are certain disability-related expenses. Obviously, there's a pattern. Okay, every so many years you may need to get a replacement. Every so many years you may need to get. And then the other thing is, full disclosure. In my internship, I helped develop this. So I'm just saying this from my experience. One of the reasons
Please.
why we tried to get cooperation from other states is you need a lot of folks in the pot to make this financially feasible, because the persons with a disability is not a very large population.
Especially when you limit it to people who acquired their disability prior to 26. So
And thus, the more people we get in there, the more we can actually lower the cost. It's similar to insurance. If, let's say, you get car insurance,
Right.
the more people who have insurance,
right.
the better.
Bill,
price.
you're absolutely right about that. Bill served as an intern for a semester when you were in grad school for the state treasurer and helped to work on the policy and the development of this program. And one thing that Illinois did, it's the one brilliant thing that Illinois did was say this is an expensive program to run, and there aren't enough people to qualify for it. So how are we going to get a program manager to bid on it? To bid to run it, because the sunk costs are huge. And they did it by pulling together first 5 states, and now we have a 15-state, soon to be 16-state consortium that came together, put it out for bid, and we brought in a program manager who's doing a terrific job and has fees that are reasonable, and they're lower than many programs and in line with others. And we have parts of our program that I think, and I'm a big cheerleader for Illinois ABLE. I think it's a great program, as long as you got to know some of the little quirky things about it, right, that we're working to change. But Bill, you helped work on it, so thank you for helping to put it together. Yes.
Can you talk about how you can use ABLE money towards housing?
How can you use ABLE money towards housing? You can use ABLE money toward rent. You can use ABLE money for down payments on housing. There's a thing about an SSI benefits. If you have to pay your rent in the month that in the month that it's due, if you pay it out of your ABLE account. Otherwise, I think Social Security will look back at that. There's some weird SSI thing, but you need to ask your Social Security benefit specialist. I may give you the wrong answer.
So just to add on to that, so my SSI gives me a certain amount towards rent.
Correct.
I can take money out of my ABLE account to pay for rent, which means I can live in a better place and not have my benefits affected.
Correct.
And the same thing is true of my services. I've got services paid through Medicare. I have a little extra money in my ABLE account. I want to have some other kind of services.
Yep.
I can pay for that and not affect my benefits that are paying for others.
That's right. And if you're let's say you've got a DRS job specialist, an employment specialist, who gives you job coaching for 90 days, and they close your case, and you're doing okay, but you're kind of feeling a little shaky. You might want to, if you have the funds in your ABLE account, you can use the funds to get a little extra job coaching.
Someone mentioned other things, but I'm part of Search. I go to Search Monday through Fridays with Trisha. So my question is, can Search help pay?
For No Boundaries?
Yeah,
Yes.
Even though it's non-for-profit?
Yes. So No Boundaries is the program that Tricia directs for Search, and the tuition that is charged for that program can be paid for out of your ABLE account.
I just want to say I verified that 10%.
Of earnings?
Yeah, it's 10% of the earnings. So if you take money out, it's all not going to be taxable. It's only the earnings. That's
The earnings are taxable, but I wasn't sure about the penalty.
10% is on the amount that could be included as income,
Which
which would be the earnings.
would be the earnings, okay. So 10% on the earnings. Yes. the interest or the value, the short-term, long-term gains in Monty's world.
Money that's gone into
Today
it
it's
is
short-term losses.
taxes have been paid on that money, right?
Right.
So that it would just be on the earnings.
You're just, yeah.
Yes, going back to the housing aspect, I'm assuming this would be covered, but things like modifications for accessibility and probably.
Yep. Definitely something you could pay for. There's a story that somebody from the Spina Bifida Association shared with me that he's really trying to educate his population to open ABLE accounts because he has a young man who is a wheelchair user who his wheelchair broke and he stayed way below the limits and he didn't have the funds to pay to fix it. So he was using his backup wheelchair, which didn't fit his specialized cushion that prevents pressure sores, and he developed pressure sores and ended up in the hospital for a couple of months to treat those pressure sores. And that cost Medicaid a heck of a lot more than it would have cost if he'd had some ABLE funds and could have used that to fix the wheelchair and take care of the problem. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the income, and I'll say it one more time. I'll give you an example of how Social Security still looks at your income, even though you have an ABLE account. So Joe is an SSI recipient. He has his paycheck deposited every paycheck period into his ABLE account. Social Security will still look at that paycheck as income for Joe. So let's say his SSI benefit every month is $750. And this month he earns $1,000. So Social Security will first subtract $85 from that $1,000, and Marianne, and Barb, you're gonna correct me if I get this wrong. Social Security will subtract $85 from his $1,000 earnings to take him down to $915. Then they divide the $915 by 2, which leaves him with $457.50. Then they subtract that $457.50 from his SSI monthly benefit of $750. Are you still with me? So they've got that benefit. And that gives him a new SSI benefit of $292.50. When you add the $292.50 to his $1,000, he's still better off because he's earned $1,292.50. So yes, his income gets reduced the more hours you work, Anton, the more you're helping take care of yourself. But when you start to do that a couple of months in a row, all of a sudden you've got money that could be saved. And in the old days, if you didn't have an ABLE account, you had to stop at $2,000. Now you can put it in your ABLE account. Make sense? So that's one thing people need to know. The second one is about Medicaid. And this is that if you receive services from a service provider, so if you live in a group home or a 24-hour SILA, you're receiving home-based waiver. Yeah, home-based waiver is a Medicaid program. You're receiving that support and you're living in a SILA. The service provider, you still have to report your earned and unearned income to Medicaid. It offsets how much Medicaid pays to help take care of you. And even if you put that money into an ABLE account, Medicaid still looks at that income. So I don't want to confuse people, but it's something that you need to know. Because some folks have thought, well, if I'm, I can put whatever I'm earning into my ABLE account and Medicaid won't see it and they won't offset it against what they spend. That's not true. Make sense? It's just something that we need to be aware of.
Just like if you get SSDI, where I think the cap is, what is it, $1,170 a month?
There's no cap for SSDI. There's no asset cap. Are you talking about an earnings cap?
Yes.
I'm not sure what the number is for that. Nobody cares. You're fine. You can fund his ABLE account. We're going to talk about that Medicaid clawback before the end of tonight. That everybody should be aware of it, but nobody should be afraid of it. So that would affect, yes.
Is the interest that's made on the ABLE account considered income then also?
Is the interest that's earned on an ABLE account?
Considered income to the individual, is that?
No, not for purposes of SSI. No. But that's a good question.
But do you have to file taxes on the
I don't know about what you file as taxes as an individual with a disability, but you do receive a 1099 QA and you do receive a 5498. The 1099 QA is for earnings, and the 5498 is for contributions, I think.
It's for $3.
Yeah, and many individuals are not paying taxes anyway. Their net tax flat. Now you're getting into the world of a CPA, and are we okay? So we're going to talk about these about saving money. Now this is the breakdown of an Illinois ABLE account or of any of the other 14 states that are part of the alliance. So you can open an ABLE account in any state, except those states that don't offer it to non-residents. Florida doesn't offer it to non-residents, and there may be one other state. All other states you can open in any state you want. It's always advised to look at your own state first, in case your own state has some benefits that are good for taxpayers in that state. In our state, taking that train to Springfield a lot, because we have a bill before the General Assembly to pass an income tax deduction, state income tax deduction for contributions. Deduction? Yeah. The same as a 529 college. Cross your fingers, hope it passes this spring. It's Illinois. They never want to miss a chance to get your money, so we got to work on that one. Investments and checking. We can go into what the asset choices can be, but maybe we don't need to do that tonight. What we can say is that you can invest the way you might select an asset type for a 401k or an HSA. What's my risk tolerance? What is the risk? Starting with aggressive, which is 90% equities, 10% bonds, all the way down to conservative, which is mostly cash, 60% cash, 30% bonds, and 10% equities. As we know from the markets today, you got to have a strong stomach lining when you're in the aggressive world, because when it's going up, it's feeling great, and when it goes down, it feels really bad. Obviously, for people who have a longer term horizon, aggressive, moderately aggressive is featured for that investor, and then conservative and moderately conservative for somebody whose stomach lining just doesn't want to take that kind of risk. Or if you have short-term needs for your money. A young woman in Alaska opened an ABLE account, didn't realize what aggressive meant, and she put the money in aggressive, and the market fluctuates, and she put it in this week, and then she went to withdraw, and the value of it was down. And that was a hard financial wellness lesson to learn, and it's something that we all know, with or without a disability, we all need to be educated about financial wellness, but folks with disabilities, we're really needing to talk a lot about what it means to take risk and invest and save money. Then we have a checking option, which is offered by Fifth Third Bank. You were asking about the fees on the checking option. We'll talk about that. At Fifth Third Bank, if you walk into the Fifth Third branch here on the North Shore and you say, I want to open an ABLE account, they will say, we don't know what you're talking about. And the reason for that is that these are state-run programs, just like 529 college savings programs go through the state. So you have to go through the program to open your account and make your investment, and there'll be information here for that. Same with the checking. When you enroll in the program, you can enroll in the checking account. It comes with a debit card. It comes with the 53,000 ATMs all over the place. You can get checks for it. What you can't do, you can go to an ATM, any of those ATMs, and you can withdraw from your ABLE account because that money has been deposited and already gone through the program, and now you can access it. What you can't do is go in and put money in via an ATM. So there are a few differences with checking that, like, I can't use my mobile phone to take a check and make a deposit into my ABLE account, my ABLE checking account. It can't do it that way. It can't go in the reverse at this point. Why is that? Because there is a maximum amount that you can put in every month, every year. Does anybody know how much that is? 15,000. The gift limit amount, 15,000 from all sources. And so the programs, it is our responsibility, and it's written into the law, that the states are responsible for safeguarding the integrity of a person's benefits. And so if you're We have to track all the money that goes through it, and that's why you can't put it in via an ATM.
What about direct deposit from the account?
You can definitely have direct deposit. You can have direct deposit from SSI, or Social Security can be direct deposited into it. As long as it comes into the program, then it can go out via the checking account or withdrawals from the investment.
I just want to add something. We worked it out so that my son has an ABLE and an account at North Shore Savings. He can transfer money from one account, from the regular account. The bank can do it.
Yes, and electronic funds transfer can be made. Yep,
Goes to the 2,000, he can transfer.
he can transfer. Yep,
He hasn't had to do it yet, but it's there.
They don't
but he
do
can
it
do that.
automatically, they don't.
You can set it up as an automatic transfer, but it doesn't. But you can also order it. Yes.
When someone's opening an account, are there people that can help them choose what option is right for them?
The customer service folks on the other end of the phone, I think, Carol, you've interacted with, they're very nice, but they are not financial advisors, and they would be breaking the law if they told you what you should do with your money. So you're better off to seek advice from somebody who is qualified to give you that advice, or do some self-training and. But no, they're not going to give you advice about where to put the money in. They can describe the different breakdowns like I just did, and there's more information on the website about the different allocations.
If you have a guardian account, how does that come play?
If you have a guardian,
Yeah, the account. Like, I have a guardian account, but it's under my mom's name. So how does that fall into play?
so Anton, you're asking an important question that I've overlooked until now. An ABLE account, unlike 529 college savings account, the individual with the disability is always the owner, is always the beneficiary. Always the owner and always the beneficiary. And that has created some opportunity for independence and self-direction and self-reliance. But it's also created some challenges because as adults especially, if you're under the guardianship of your mom, for example, you are the owner of the account. And she may, as your guardian, would open the account, and she's called your authorized individual, but you always own the account.
Does she co-sign?
She would direct and manage the account because she is your guardian, but you own it, and you are the beneficiary of all the money in there. If I have a 529 college savings account, I can be the owner of it, and the kid that's going to college is the beneficiary of it. It's kind of like, if you think about it, if you made 529 so that the owner of the account is always the kid who's going to college, and all of a sudden there's $100,000 in there, and he turns 18. And so it's one of those, it can be a little bit of a tricky area. I know a lot of folks who have disabilities who you wouldn't think could make judgments without support, and they have every reason to open and own and manage their own account. And then there are other folks who need some support. That's why you have the guardianship of your mom. She would be the authorized person that acts on the account, but you are always the beneficiary. You are always the owner. Yes?
Two questions. Can you move Social Security funds from a checking account into the ABLE account?
Yes.
Okay. Second question, if you open the account, you're the owner of the account, you pass away, who gets the money?
If you are the owner of an ABLE account and you pass away, the money goes into your estate, and we're going to talk about the second half of that question in a second, and that's to do with the Medicaid clawback. If you are a Medicaid recipient. So if you pass away, like you can't assign, and we're working on legislation to change this, I can't put an advance directive into as an account owner now to say that if I pass, this goes to Joe, who also has to have a qualifying disability, or this money goes to XYZ. The money will go into my estate. And then our state Medicaid agency has the option to go in and lay claim to the funds if you have benefited from Medicaid between the time that you opened the account and the time that you died. Our state Medicaid agency has the option. In our world, we're calling it the Medicaid clawback. to go in after the funeral expenses are paid, after all your disability-related expenses are paid. The Medicaid has the option to go in and take the money back. We are fighting like crazy. We have legislation before the General Assembly. It's passed the Senate committee. It has passed the House committee to end that optional Medicaid clawback piece of it. Does that make sense? But you need to be aware of it because that's one of the differences, and that's one of the things that a special needs trust attorney or the special needs trust protects you against, is that Medicaid can't go in and get all that. They can't go lay claim to it. Barb,
So
is that making sense?
I funded John's whole ABLE account, and we spent it for him, but really I put it in.
That's right.
They can still come and take it.
That's right, and it's wrong. This is private money. This was not Medicaid money. This is our money. And this was our money to help take care of the expenses that weren't covered, that were already needed. But it was part of the, getting this passed in 2014. It wasn't part of the original legislation. We're fighting it. Each state has to fight it independently. Pennsylvania, Delaware, in their states, California, I think Oregon have passed legislation that says their Medicaid agency can't go in and do that if somebody dies under that option. But let's talk about somebody who is receiving home-based waiver, somebody who's living in a 24-hour CILA. And that is, I don't mean to get into the weeds of complication with this, but we need to be aware of it. But then, and if you live in a 24 hours, if you're getting long-term support services, which is you're living in a group home, you are subject to the post-eligibility treatment of income, that what I was telling you before where they offset. If you're older than 55, if you pass away, Medicaid is required by federal law, and it's not just with ABLE accounts, to go in and lay claim to assets first to repay itself. And because the ABLE account is in your name, that's something that Medicaid, by law, is supposed to go in and lay claim to. So there's the optional one where Medicaid can go in, the first one we just talked about, and then there's the one that if you live in a group home, by law, our agency is supposed to go in and lay claim. Can't get any information about whether Medicaid ever even does that. Some people say they do, some people say it doesn't happen. The thing to know is that in these early years, just pay attention to the account. I remind us, this is a living account, not a dying account. We have to think about, yes, you have to think about that possibility. But in the first couple of years, if you're using the account, the most you can put in is $15,000. And right now, the average account balance is about $5,000. We're kind of getting used to this. For a family to say, oh, not opening one, not going to do ABLE till the Medicaid clawback is solved, I think you're making a mistake because you're giving up the opportunity for some of the things that we've talked about, self-reliance, independence, some control, for what, $5,000? A funeral is going to cost more than $5,000. Make sense? But as these accounts grow and you're putting money in and you've got, you definitely need to be aware of it and manage around it. And then watch, and I'm going to, if you will give me your name and your email address, I will add you to our news and updates and we will keep you updated on all the legislation. If it passes in Illinois, and cross fingers that it does, Terry, would you mind passing that around? If it passes, the Medicaid clawback legislation passes in Illinois, remember, that's just for the folks where there's the option. For you, and I'm sorry to single you out, but if you have experience with a group home or with long-term home-based waiver, you just have to keep in mind that even if this piece passes, we still have to fight it at the federal level so that Medicaid can never go in and get money from your ABLE account.
Yeah, but if there's a judgment, like my son, if there was a judgment against him from somebody else from years ago, if they could get access to this ABLE account.
I can't answer that question. I don't think so, but that would be for a lawyer to, yeah, I'd be stepping out of.
You mentioned that states like Pennsylvania, for example, don't have the clawback. So if somebody from Illinois open an account there, are they, and they pass away, are they subject to Illinois clawback, or would they be protected because it was opened in Pennsylvania?
It's Illinois. You may have a Pennsylvania account, but you're an Illinois resident who received Medicaid support in Illinois, they will probably still go and look at that account. Again, everybody's still trying to figure this out. We're not really sure how the hell they're going to track it.
Why would you open a Pennsylvania account?
She won't open it in Pennsylvania. I'll kill her. No, actually, Pennsylvania is part of the alliance, but she's right. That, you know, how Medicaid, our Medicaid agency can't even take care of what it's supposed to be doing, right? So, but we think that if our Medicaid agency is looking and getting information, which they can, on her or his account, possibly.
I think her, I don't know who it was, question about liability was a good one, because what if someone accuses the owner of this account of wrongdoing and sues them, and their monies are now susceptible? You're already in a population that's susceptible to things like that.
Well, I'm not sure of the exact answer to that because it does get into the law, but it is, I can definitely ask and find out. It reminds me of something that I think is important for us as a community that wants to protect and grow these accounts, that it is easy to open these. Some states make it really easy to open the accounts. It's already self-certifying about the disability. You just check the box. And in some places, you just check the box that says, I have the authority to operate on Anton's Social Security number, and I can open this account, and in goes Anton's money, and I am the authorized individual on that. And Anton might never even know. If Anton is somebody who is, he might never know that I did it. And we have our first case of an individual, and I'm sure it's been done innocently, but a representative payee at a group home has opened an account for an adult with an intellectual disability, did not open it in this state, because in this state, if I go in and I say, Anton, I want to open an ABLE account in your name, and I send in the papers and I give them all your information, they're going to say, okay, JJ, show us the proof that you have the authority to operate on Anton's behalf. And I have to submit my guardianship papers, or I have to submit the power of attorney. Some states don't require you to submit that. They just say, oh, you say you're good to go? Go ahead. The problem is when we talk about fraud and vulnerability over time, I think that we have to be very careful of that. So when you enroll in Illinois ABLE, notice the when, know that when they're asking you for documentation, there's a reason for it. But let's talk a little bit about that guardianship piece.
I'm going to forget my question, so I'm glad
Okay.
I remember it. So I'm going to give you a quick, my mom, when she did SSI and everything in Guardian, she did a report to the judge, and she messed up on the, Anthony's great, Anthony did everything right, but she didn't mention, what I do wrong and not good. So my question is, if you did that to this ABLE, would you lose that?
No.
Okay.
And that's the other thing about ABLE is you can open up an account. You don't have to get permission to spend the money. You get to control it. And I think somebody had asked about the different breakdowns. I'll do this very quickly because there are some other things that I want to run into. These are passively managed underlying funds. BlackRock, Vanguard, Charles Schwab. They're reputable organizations. You'll be comforted to know that Illinois does not touch your money. We administer the program, but it is all held in trust, so you're safe. You're safe from Illinois, maybe not necessarily from the markets, but you're safe from Illinois. And the checking account product, the checking account service, same FDIC insurance, bears a little tiny minuscule amount of interest. You get a debit card, no card issuance fees, no limits on how often you can use it. You can get check writing. You can use ATMs to withdraw your money. There's no monthly fee on the checking account as long as you have more than $250 in it, or you get your statements electronically. If you don't have either of those, it's $2 a month to have the checking account. I recommend that you avoid that fee if you're going to do the checking option and there are no overdraft fees on this account. And I want to point that out because I think this is very unusual. And it's Fifth Third's and the program manager's attempt to really make this a good and healthy program for folks with disabilities who may make a mistake and overdraw their account. Well, in the real world, and I shouldn't say it like that, but for most of us, you overdraw, you're in trouble. But there are no overdraft fees. If you overdraw your account, they stop it, and they don't let you take any more out or use it until it's replenished. So there are some really nice things about it. There are fees for having ABLE to begin with. So checking falls under the whole ABLE umbrella. The fees are, it's $15 a quarter to have an ABLE account. That is in line with the national average. Some states where it's residents only are like maybe $35. It turns out to be $60 a year. They may be $35 a year. Some are $40, $50 a year. I think for the robust program that's offered, that $60 a year is it's not the highest, but it's right in the middle. And if you get your statements electronically, it goes down by it goes from $15 a quarter to $11.25 a quarter. So it's less if you get it's like $45 or $48 a year. Okay. Yes.
Now, can you have two ABLE accounts that total $100,000 or whatever it is, where some checking and some is in investment?
Yeah, you can only have one ABLE account per owner. So Anton, if you have one ABLE account with Illinois ABLE, you cannot open up an Ohio ABLE account. You can only have one across the country. But you can put money into each one of those 6 investment options and the checking account. You can also set it up so that money is put into the checking account from the investment options on a regular basis. You've got that flexibility, and that's where the folks in customer service can help you. Where do I go? You got to go online or call the customer service number. They can send you, if you're not an internet person, they can send you the paper forms to enroll, or you can enroll online, or you can download all the forms from the website, print them, and mail them in. You do have to mail in your check or set up electronic funds anyway. Let's see, what else? What have I forgotten? I have my car, yes.
Since this is new, do people have to notify Medicaid and SSI that they're going to do this? Should they
No.
be concerned?
No. Although somebody the other night said, our Social Security person asked when we were going through the process, do you have an ABLE account? Why did they ask me? What do they want to know? And so I don't know, ask them what they want to know, but they will track. We have to transfer electronically our data every month to Social Security, and they are only tracking it to see when you hit 100. When you hit 100 from the ABLE, then it will impact those, but you don't have to tell. I mean, you should tell them, because honestly, we need our agencies to know that these accounts are out there. Just because we know about it doesn't mean that our agencies know about it. Is it possible that somebody will have a problem? We haven't heard of any problem so far, but I will leave my card, and you can call me at any time. I will do my best to get back to you, but if you run into any trouble, whether it's enrolling, dealing with an agency, we want to know about it, because we do want this to be successful. This gal who lives in Springfield, who's working, opened her ABLE account, and her quote was that her first goal was to use the money to save to purchase an accessible vehicle, and she contacted me last week to say that she put a down payment on the vehicle with her ABLE account. So that's pretty exciting to see how people are able to use them. Just quickly, we talked about Medicaid clawback, right? I want to make sure that we covered that. Able to work, passed in December with the Tax Reform Act. What does it mean? It means that if you are working and you have a disability and you have an ABLE account, you can put in, there's the $15,000 cap, you can put in additional amounts up to whatever your gross earnings are. So it's incentivizing people to work. So if I'm earning, so Anton, you could have, your best friend could put $15,000 into your savings account, and then what you're earning at Hune, you could put in that money. Or if you're spending that money on your groceries, we think somebody else could put some additional money in to your account. A little confusing, but right.
No cap.
There is a cap. The cap is up to your gross earnings or the poverty limit. So if your earnings are $5,000, you can put 15 in under the regular amount, and then you can put up to 5 in however much you've earned.
JJ, I had a question on the clarification with the guardianship.
Yes.
You're guardian of the estate.
Yes, thank you.
If you're guardian of the person.
Thank you. Thank you, Barb. That was the one thing. That's the other bane besides the clawback. Guardianship, just know, if you haven't opened your account yet. In Illinois, historically, when families go for guardianship, when you go to have somebody be your guardian, because people with disabilities have historically never had assets, right? People have been advised to get guardianship of the person, but often not of the estate. So what happens now that ABLE exists is if I'm a guardian of the person and I go to open up an Illinois ABLE account or a Kansas ABLE account or most of the other accounts, and I submit my guardianship of the person documents, the account's going to reject me. The program's going to reject me. And the reason it's going to reject me is because I don't have authority to transact in financial matters for this person, this adult.
We can do that power of attorney.
But if,
Financial.
yeah, when I first started this role, I was trying to figure out every way to get around this because I thought, well, if I don't have, if he's not under guardianship of the estate, that must mean that it presumes competence, that he can therefore make these decisions of himself. However, if you go under guardianship of the person, you lose your ability to contract. So if you're the guardian of the person and you send in those documents to enroll in ABLE and you submit those documents, the program will reject you. And if you then subsequently send in a power of attorney, there's going to be a big red question mark because they're going to say, well, wait a minute, we've already seen guardianship of the person papers, which means you can't have a power of attorney. So here's what you should know is we have submitted to change the rules in Illinois because we don't want this to be one of those programs where you just check the box to say, yeah, I got the authority, because it's not safe for our community. However, we are in the process of asking for the rules to be changed in Illinois law to allow a parent of an adult, just as a parent of a minor, can open an account for an adult child. You don't have to submit guardianship or power of attorney. You just have to send a birth certificate in and you're good to go.
So just as a follow-up, so
Yes.
if I don't have either guardianship now, I don't have guardian of the estate or guardian of the person.
Yep.
I was gonna do the power of attorney first and then go for full guardianship afterwards.
Yep.
So do I counteract anything by going that route?
If your son gives you power of attorney, now grants you power of attorney to be his authorized individual, you can open the account as his authorized individual.
Right.
If later on you become his guardian and you only get guardianship of the person, it's likely that you will have problems transacting on his ABLE account. Because,
So I'll go for full guardianship.
well, I'm hoping that between now and June,
Okay.
the rules are going to change and you won't have to worry about it.
Okay.
But just be aware of it if you go for guardianship. The other way to deal with it is is to ask the court to say guardianship of the person with the authority to open an ABLE account. But a lot of our court system isn't really that familiar with it yet, so they're going to be like, no, we don't even know what you're talking about. We're trying to educate them.
What if you have power of attorney, and now this account is your son's account, and he's the owner, and he can do what he wants with it, but he tries to send money to Nigeria? Can you stop him?
Well, if he may be the owner of the account, but if you've been given power of attorney by him and granted power of attorney to be his authorized individual, you have full control over the account.
Okay, so you can stop the payment. to
Yeah,
Nigeria.
you would have the debit card. It will all be under your control.
But he can use it. I mean,
No.
what's the point of him having a debit card if he can't go use it at a movie theater?
Wait, you know what? I know what you're asking. He could, he could go and use the debit card. That's correct. But you're going to have to be the one that signs the checks. Does that make sense?
Signs the checks.
If you get checks, if you're going to write checks on it. You know, I need to double check that debit card. Do you know, Carol, Tim owns he's the account owner and doesn't have an authorized individual, so it's in his account. I'm going to double check that too. In whose name is the debit card with an authorized individual? I feel like it, well, I'll check and get it back to Ann.
Right, could you, I mean, I don't know, do they, on a debit card, can you put like daily limits and other things?
Yes, you can't put a daily limit, but you could put a weekly limit.
Yeah,
You can put a weekly limit.
But if you have a debit card that where the account stays under $2,000 and it's in their name, they can still use that debit card, and it's not part of the ABLE card. You know, like our son has his own debit card, he uses it as long as he stays under 2,000.
With his checking account, yeah.
And it's under his name, even though we have power of attorney, because it's his checking account. And we can take money out of there.
Yeah, I need to think that one through. I have 8 o'clock brain. I've got to think that one through. And if you give me your name, I will get the correct answer. Bill?
I guess to explain this to people, think of this, as our favorite financial advisor would say, as this, an emergency fund. If you have different things that you need related to the disability, don't think of this as like retirement, don't think of this as an investment, but think of this as an emergency fund when you need certain things done. Because certain, like for example, you probably take for granted when you rent an apartment that you have enough assets to say, okay, I'll pay the first 2 months. For someone with a disability who's just developing themselves, having job stability, that's something that may be a humongous hurdle. And by having this alternative fund available, it's a solution for the moment that you need it right now, rather than preparing 50 years from now, 30 years from now.
Right, and it could be both.
Yeah.
And it could also be a little bit of right now and a little bit of down the road. We'll do a quick true and false. I have to enroll before I turn 26. The aggressive investment option is good for daily disability needs. I will lose my SSI benefits if I open an ABLE account. God, everything's false. I can open an ABLE account if I am 35 years old. I can open an ABLE account by going to a Fifth Third branch. I have to open the account only in my state. We have just a couple more minutes. Any other questions? Thank you, Barb, for making sure that I addressed that guardianship one. I hope that this sounds not super confusing, because it really is meant to be freeing, not confusing. There are some questions that I couldn't answer, and I'll get the answers. Yes.
My son does not get SSI. He works 2 part-time jobs and therefore makes too much money. Am I still able to use this account for him?
If his disability was present prior to age 26, and he would qualify for SSI, you know, were he to apply for it, if he meets that definition, yes.
He's been denied several times because they say he can work.
Because he can work. Okay. Yes. I would say yes, but I don't know him. That would be my parents saying, yeah.
I have a chase
Yes, sir.
account, so you have to, I'm not understanding, the amount would probably say the same thing if she was here. So I have a chase account, how does that work?
Well, you have a Chase checking account.
Savings and checking.
You could have a Fifth Third checking account with your ABLE. If you open an ABLE account, then you might have 2 checking accounts. Or your mom might decide, well, we don't need the Chase account anymore. Let's put everything into the ABLE account and close the Chase account. Or you might decide that you want to keep both of them. It's just with that Chase account, you got to make sure you don't have more than $2,000 in it. Because it's not an ABLE account. Only the ABLE account is an ABLE account. Only that Fifth Third checking account would be part of your ABLE account. You've seen the Fifth Third bank, right?
Yeah.
Can you go into a Fifth Third branch and open an ABLE account?
That's when I go to mom.
Or me? Good answer. Any other
I don't
questions?
jeopardize myself.
So you can have a different bank, not just Fifth Third.
You cannot have a different bank with the checking option through the Illinois ABLE program. It has to be a Fifth Third checking account. Yeah.
So 21 years ago, we hired a special needs lawyer to
Set up a trust?
yeah, come to find out 6 months ago that it's the wrong trust.
Oh.
So, not the same lawyer perhaps.
Oh.
Because this program is new, as were these trusts 21 years ago, can you predict any pitfalls or anything that parents or guardians should be looking for as kind of red flags 5 years, 10 years, 15 years?
What I would be looking for right now is I would be aware of the Medicaid, the ability of Medicaid to come in if it wants, and the requirement for Medicaid to go in if you're getting long-term support services. That's the only red flag that I would identify. In fact, I think that there will be fewer of those as ABLE grows, because we hope that legislation will pass to make it easier to access, easier to use, disallow Medicaid from messing with our funds if we die. Allow for, legislation passed to allow 529 accounts to be rolled over into ABLE accounts. You can only roll over the maximum ABLE amount, which is 15. But if I've got 50 grand in my 529 account, I should be able to roll the whole thing into an ABLE account if I want to. So the ability to put in lump sums, the ability to put more money in than $15,000. It's called front loading, you know, for like say 5 years worth of investment. So could the federal law change? I mean, could they close the accounts? Could they end the program? I guess it's always a risk, but you know, I'm a believer, I think we all are, that this is so transformative that it will only get better. Can anybody else think of any red flags that we should be aware of, Marianne?
If they allow, if you fund it by enable, and there's no beneficiary on it, and there's no clawback, or there's not enough to be clawed back.
Yep.
More than there's left. Then the person who's the owner should have a will.
Then the person who is the owner should have a will. Yes, that's a great point. The person who's the owner should have a will. Otherwise, it goes into probate, whatever's, and yeah.
So we were just actually talking about the idea that some special needs trusts, there's no ability to go back and pull money after a person dies, right? So the special needs trust could funnel money into the ABLE account, so it's not huge amounts of money in the account.
Yep.
Should something happen.
Yep.
So that you're finding a way to move the money where it needs to be, when
Yeah.
it needs to be there.
Yeah.
And after parents aren't around to manage that trust, if it's an automatic distribution, it can
Yep.
keep going.
Yep.
Seems like a smart plan.
Yeah. I think over time, we want ABLE accounts not to be just the leftover account. You know, a little money left over, let's use it. Because in order for ABLE to grow and those fees to go down, more people need to be able to access them and use them. But with the Medicaid, with the current laws and the requirements, you know, to be forced that your funds can only be in a special needs trust to be fully safe. And I think you pay income taxes on the earnings, right, of the trust. You know, that shouldn't be the only alternative. So we want to see it flourish and grow. You know, I think maybe another risk is that if the programs, that the fees don't come down as quickly as we want because the program doesn't grow quickly enough. That's another possibility. Yes.
So, having an ABLE account, so the last question made me think, my son doesn't have a will, because I never thought of him, he has owned less than 2,000 up to now. But it seems crazy again to pay lawyer fees just to get him I mean, is there a simple way to get him, I mean, if he dies, I don't want those funds stuck there. How does that work? I mean, you have to have it, can it just be added to a special needs
I
trust?
think as Marianne was saying, you need to have a will,
529s have a contingent owner.
an advance
That's what I
directive.
wanted to know.
Right,
That-
right. And you can't do that yet with an ABLE account for some bizarre unknown
That's all I
reason.
wanted to know.
So that's a good possible red flag to know about. Thank you for your time.